Hello everyone. So today I thought I'll probably talk about epics and stories. Now, if you're working with Jira software, most likely you're also using epics and you're also using stories, and epics are nothing but very big stories. So basically you would need more than one sprint to complete one epic, in fact multiple sprints. But the whole point of creating a story is to try if you can deliver the story within a sprint. Of course, that can not always happen. I mean, you may need more than one sprint. Sometimes you will not be able to finish the story. But the thing is that when you are working on the management of your activities, when you're planning the work, you will probably plan the work by defining the epics and then stories under it. Now, let us say you have a story which is part of epic number A, but later on, if that particular story needs to be moved to epic number B, you can of course do it. There are a lot of ways of doing it. I'll probably show you how to do it using Jira software backlog view. So basically, if you look here, I have two epics, Android and iOS. So this particular, let's take a look at this particular story, which is SSPA 14. Now, if I move it to Android, I can do it. I can click on it. I can drag on it to the right epic, and now this is part of the Android epic. Now, the thing that I want to talk about today is how you can identify using Jira fields. And maybe you want to track it somewhere. Maybe you want to do some automation based on this information. So we all know that stories are associated with epics using a field called epic link. So let me show you. So if I open one of these story, which is something that I just moved from one epic to another epic. So this is my story, which is SSPA-14. And if you look here on the right hand side, there is a field. There is a field that is called as epic link, right? So this is a field at the story level. Now, if you also want to look at the history, because history will always tell you what happened. So whenever you move story from one epic to another epic, things are changing in the story because there is a field called epic link. So you can see here that if you look at this particular history for the story, you can see here that the epic is now changed to something else. So this Android is basically the epic, and the status or the issue link or issue key is SSPA 24. It was earlier SSPA 25. Now, if I click on the epic, now how can you identify the same thing, that something changed in the epic? For example, when you say epic and when you say stories under it, your collection of epics is nothing but your scope for the next few months. And your scope can change, right? Because based on this epic link, based on the stories under a specific epic, when you keep moving your stories, you're basically changing your scope. And if you look at your epic, you can of course see here the list of issues. For example, you can see here that it says issues in this epic, and you can see here that we have the list. Now we have SSPA 14, which we just moved. Now if you look at the history, there is actually this information called epic child. So basically this information, of course, you can identify this epic and story relationship using epic link. But if you look at the history of your issue at epic level, you can see this information changing, which is basically going to tell you using the epic link. Now, this may not seem very clear right now, but what we can also do is we can also take a look at the same information using REST API. So if I try to fetch the information using REST API, so the ID, so the epic is 24. Okay, so let us do that. And when we look at the epic or the JSON response, we can actually also take a look at the change log. So you can do something like this: expand is equal to change log. So let us do that. So I'll go back to the same issue. Expand is equal to change log. And if I now look at the history should now tell you, if you look at this history information here, you can see here that for my first item in the history, so we have of course multiple entries in the history. Now if you look at the first item, you can see here that the epic child is now something else. So basically this is going to tell you straight away that the thing is that whenever you look at the information at the epic level, you also can track the change of scope. For example, this epic link is actually telling us that not epic link, but epic child at the epic level is telling us that this is basically changed to another story, or basically something actually was added or removed. Now you can also, for example, if you compare it with for example, epic child, it is now showing you that it is getting updated or removed. Let me also keep on looking at something else. Yes, so you can see here this information is basically changing. And if you also search for epic child, so we have epic child here, so it's all in the history. So there is no, if I remove the change log, and if I now search for the epic child, there is nothing here. And if you also look at the, for example, if I go back to the issue, so if we go back to the same issue, SSPA 14, or in fact I want to look at the epic, not the story. What I want to see, what I want to track is, if I go to Android, we have this list here, which is basically the list of all the epics, or rather I should say the issues. And let me search for these issues if I can. So if I look at the information here, and if I do the Control F, so do we have something called as BT-18? Not really. And if I look at maybe as AN348, no, so we don't really have this information by looking at the JSON using the, so this epic child is basically the information which you can find in the history if something is changing. But if you want to track this, I think the best way of doing it is using either a JQL, because you can also search for the issues. For example, if you want to know the stories under an epic, so you can actually use the issue search feature using using REST API, and you can use JQL, and it will give you the output or the list of issues for a specific epic. But if you're looking at the JSON of or basically the list of fields for a particular epic, you won't really get directly this list. So I thought I'll probably talk about this. It is of course going to help you, hopefully, because you may want to track the scope. And this kind of information is actually very useful when you are working with, let us say, EasyBI reports, because you can track using EasyBI the number of stories in an epic at any given point over the period of time. So you can actually compare how many stories were there in this epic last month, or this month, or last week, or yesterday, over the period of time. Because this information is actually coming from the, this information is actually there somewhere in the change history. And that is it. That is all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much.